Jennifer here again. Just going to show you your next assignment. We're going to make a movie poster. So, you may be called upon to help make a movie poster for a movie at some point or even as a prop. So let's take a look at how you would do that. The first thing to know is that the big movie posters that you see on bus stops are about 27 by 41 inches. Now, that's really large, and a lot of posters aren't even printed anymore onto paper. They become these big LED screen advertisements inside the movie theater, and they are still about that size. But just so you know, and so you understand how it all works with printing, as we talked about before, you're going to want to take a look at what I have here. And please pay attention because I am really trying to make sure that you understand everything for your test. So as you can see, I've made a poster, just starting off with, called Penton underscore movie underscore poster underscore 1.psd. And if you go to my image size, you'll see that I made it. Let's take a look here, image size. And I made it to be 27 inches by 41 inches at 300 pixels per inch. Now, that is huge, and it will really slow down a lot of people's computers, okay? So you can see the dimensions are 8,100 pixels by 12,300 pixels. So this is a huge, huge size. Now, if you really were called upon to make a poster of this size, you would be able to. You just have to know that it might slow your computer down unless you have a really high quality computer. And also, you're going to make sure that you have very, very large images so that you're using a very high quality camera or you're getting very high quality, very high resolution images to fill the poster. Just take a look here. So make sure you understand this. 27 by 41 inches is a standard movie poster size for like a bus stop. Now, oftentimes they'll make posters that are 24 by 36 inches. But we're going to make one that's even smaller. Ours is going to be 10 by 15 inches, still at 300 pixels per inch, just so that you can understand how that would print nicely. Okay? But this is your standard size for a very large movie poster that could be framed and, maybe become, valuable at some point. I'm going to click on OK. And I just want you to see that this image here that I pasted into this poster is actually a very large image. So let's take a look here. I think it's 4K. But as you can see, it's tiny. It's not a postage stamp, but it's pretty small in this poster. So if I go ahead and just go to the internet just to show you, I've got a few things here that I'm going to show you here. Just for this poster, so this one is this image is 4,608 pixels by 3,072 pixels. And when I did the search here, I did specify in advanced search to be larger than 4 megapixels. So I went into settings, advanced search, and I put in here larger than 4 megapixels. I tried 70 and I didn't find much. Now you could try even 40 megapixels or so, keeping in mind that this is just for school, so you're not going to actually want to print this and sell it unless you get the licensing rights for it. You can always go down here and search by usage rights and possibly pay for your images. Okay, keep that in mind. I'm just going to go back here to the poster. Okay, so this was the poster that this is the image that I chose for my movie poster. And once again, I did a copy image and then I pasted it right into this, what was a blank document. Okay, now notice it's pretty small in a movie poster that's 27 by 41 inches at 300 pixels per inch. If I then were to have made this poster smaller, okay, well, let's take a look at this. This poster started off as, let's go to image size, 10 by 15 inches at 300 pixels per inch. And when I did the exact same function, copying this image, okay, here, and pasting it in, it is much bigger in comparison to the poster size because the poster itself is only 10 by 15 inches, not 27 by 41 inches. And you'll notice that the total dimensions of this poster are 3000 pixels by 4500 pixels, much, much smaller than the poster over here. And let's just take a look at that. So look at this one again, 10 by 15, 300 pixels are 3000 by 4500 pixels. And this poster, you can see that same image looks much smaller in that poster. And that image size is 8100 pixels by 12300 pixels. So keep those things in mind, okay? Now, we're going to go ahead and go with this size, okay? Once again, 10 by 15 inches at 300 pixels per inch. And then any images you paste into this image will look much bigger. Remember, this image itself, this starry night here, is large. It is 4608 pixels by 3072 pixels because I did an advanced search, okay, in my settings. Okay. And I really like this image. It's very pretty. All right, now we're going to go back to Photoshop and you're going to see how this is all going to work. So let's go ahead and cancel. So I have this night sky. I'm going to make a poster that's going to start off being called like Blue Moon. Okay. Now, as you can see, this night sky isn't covering everything I want it to. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the layer by making sure I've highlighted it. And I'm going to transform. And I'm going to go edit transform. Before I do that, let me go ahead and turn on, hold on one second. Let me go to my apps and I'm going to turn on my keycaster so you can see everything I do. Let's do that really quickly. And there it is. Open it up. Okay, so now everything should be working fine with that. Okay, go back to Photoshop. Okay, so once again, Command T. I'm going to transform the night sky and make it take up the entire image. Now, I like this side of it, so I'm going to go ahead and hold down Option. Now, I've told you in the past that I don't actually, let me escape, and I'm going to start over. Escape gets you out of any transform. Command T. I'm actually just going to drag from the side because I like this, this edge. Now remember, I've told you before, do not res up. Now, in this case, because I'm not printing and I don't have to res up that much, and it's just for demonstration purposes, I am resing up, meaning I'm making this larger. Okay, but in general, you're not going to want to do this. You're always going to want to choose something larger than the image and res down. Since we're doing so much from the internet, it's kind of easy to show you by resing up. But I don't want you to get into the habit of that ever, unless you really aren't worried about quality. But usually you're going to be worried about quality, especially if you're making images for props, okay? So I'm going to hit return, and I have this really pretty piece in here. Now, keep in mind, this is very large now, so I have a lot more of this poster. Now, if I were animating this, it would be great to have this because I could do like a pan, you know, if this were actually a video. But because this is a movie poster, I don't need all that extra on the side. So one thing that I can do, and you know, if I want, yeah, one thing I can do is I could just crop this poster. Now, why would I want to crop this extra amount off of here? Well, if the reason why is because I don't necessarily want too much digital information that I'm never going to use. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to use my crop tool, and you'll see that it already knows exactly what I want to crop. Now I could always crop smaller if I wanted to, okay, and it's showing me, as you can see, the whole background of that image and what I might want to crop. So maybe I just want this section, right? But I'm going to escape again. This is actually what I want. Now, the thing about this is I'm cropping to remove all of that extra information of that beautiful starry night that's out here that we're not seeing, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that delete cropped pixels is checked, and I'm going to make sure that there are no extra, there's nothing predetermined here, okay? And watch what happens. So when I hit return, it shows me the outer part that I'm cropping off, okay? And I'm going to delete these pixels. So I'm going to hit return again. And now I have removed this extra part of the Starry Night background. Now, if I go here with my move tool, you'll see that I've now made it exactly the size of this poster that I'm creating. So there you go. So that's how to crop extra pixels off of something that you don't need to make your image size smaller, because images can get really large in Photoshop. Now don't forget to save. As you can see, this is called Penton Movie Poster 2.psd. Command S is to save. And just to help my computer function better, I'm going to take this poster, I'm just going to close it. And I'm not going to save it. Okay, so there we are. So here's our background for our movie poster. Now, the next thing, remember, this is going to be called Blue Moon. And the next thing I'm going to do is I need to get an image of the moon. So I found a large, just to save you time in this demo, I found a large image of the moon. Okay, and this was taken by NASA, I believe. It's also a very large image. And but I still have to res this up if I want it to be big and dramatic for my movie poster. And you'll notice I haven't named it yet. And there's an important reason for that. I want to remove the black background. And as you've known from previous tutorials, there are many ways I can do this. I can make a circle and just delete. I can select the moon. There are a lot of different things I can do. In this case, I think what I'll do is I'm going to zoom in, and you'll notice there's some extra stuff along the edge of the moon because it has so many craters and things like that. So if I were to actually just make a circle, I would get some of the black from the outside. So one thing I could do is I could just select the black using the magic wand tool and delete. I could also go into select mask and make my selection much better. Let's go ahead and see what happens though if I just go in here and use my magic wand tool. Since this is such a solid background, just select that black and delete it, and then hit Command D. Well, this version of Photoshop is doing an excellent job of not leaving any extra pixels. Older versions of Photoshop won't be as good as this one. And as you can see, I don't see any extra pixels floating around. Like I don't see a square that's very skinny around that. That can happen in older versions of Photoshop. So if you have a really old version of Photoshop, you may not want to do what I did. So if I go back in history and I go back here to this layer 2, you know, I would probably, if I want to make sure this is a really clean selection, probably either use the elliptical marquee tool, or go ahead and use like the quick selection tool, and I'm going to make it bigger, and I'm making it really big, boop, and I'm grabbing that whole moon. And now what I would probably do, let me just make that a little smaller, is close that up, close my history up so I can see. Go ahead and make sure you're on this layer, choose select and mask. And remember, by default, select and mask has this red color. If you don't see this red overlay, just go to your view mode, open up your view and choose overlay rather than like onion skin where you're not going to really see anything. So make sure you've gone to overlay, and it doesn't have to be red. You can always change that color right here, but I'm going to leave it at red. You'll notice that there's a lot of chunkiness to the selection. Okay, so in this case, I'll use different sliders. I could use Smart Radius, which is helpful, but I might just want to smooth this out. So let's see what happens if I just drag this out. Okay, Now remember, please make sure that your poster is only 10 by 15 inches. Otherwise, you're going to be waiting forever. Do not make your poster 27 by 41 unless you have like a $60,000 computer or something like that. Otherwise, you're going to be waiting and waiting for Photoshop to do everything. So I think this is looking pretty good right now. I'm using smooth in this case because I want that moon to be pretty smooth. And I don't really need to decontaminate my colors in this case like I did with the hair in that previous tutorial. Um, and I can even output to the selection, but to make my life easier, I can just go ahead and output to a new layer and click on OK. And now I have a really good selection of the moon. And I did it a different way. And I know I'm not going to have any extra pixels like around the outside square of that moon. Now, because I did it this way, you'll notice I still have that layer 2. I can delete that layer 2, just bring it into the garbage can, and my layer 2 copy becomes the moon. And that's why I didn't name it, because my copy ended up becoming the moon. All right, so that's looking pretty good. And now I'm on this moon layer, and once again, Command T. I'm just going to make this smaller by hitting Command minus so I can see everything. And I'll bring the moon up, maybe keep it right in the middle. And remember, this pink line by default should be helping you with that. And I'm going to transform it. Hold down Option so it transforms from the middle. And let's make it really big. Okay, so like maybe like that. Never bring it too close to the edge. So I'm going to bring this down. Okay, wait for it to recognize, and then I can use my arrow to bring it down. Maybe bring it to about there, so it's kind of even on the sides and the top. And I have a really spectacular big blue moon now. So I'm going to go ahead and hit return. Okay, now remember, if I were really printing this, I would not have been making the moon bigger. I would find a moon that's big enough for this image. I'm going to go ahead and hit Command S to save. Now, I have this beautiful black background here, but it's too low. And I don't mind doing something a little more cartoony or, a little more stylized for this movie. So what I'm going to do is I am going to make a layer that's called the ground. So what I did was I hit plus to make a blank layer, and then I just named it ground. So just to show you, ground, right? Like that. Okay. But I don't need this one because I already have one. In fact, I'll just throw this other one away. Boop. There you go. All right, so here's my empty layer. There's nothing in it yet. And I want to actually put black in that layer. And then I'm going to make grass on it, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select right here, and I'm going to flip this so that the black is showing, okay? This is my color picker again. If you don't have a color picker functioning, as I've said before, just go to your color here. You can find that by going to Window Color, and you should be able to see this window, and you should be able to work with this window and the eyedropper tool. Okay, so my color picker, I'm going to use my marquee tool, and I'm going to switch it to my, let's go over here, rectangular marquee tool. Make sure the feather is at 0 pixels, okay? Now, if I had more of a feather, it would be a softer edge. So play around with that so you can understand how that works. I'm going to just grab this and make it about to here, I would say. And I have this empty layer. Make sure you're on an empty layer with nothing in it. I have black here. Now remember, I could go Edit, Fill, okay? Or I can simply just, if I have the right color in my color picker, Option Delete. As long as that's selected, make sure Option Delete. There you go. All right, and now I'm going to deselect, Command D, and now I have this nice ground, okay? And I want to add some grass to it, okay? But first, what might be fun is let's get a tree silhouette. You'll notice I have one, and I grabbed it from the internet. And the really cool thing, you'll see it's very tiny, but the really cool thing about this is that I was able to find, I'm going to just save, Command S, I was able to find a silhouette that already had its background knocked out. What do I mean by that? Well, you know how I separated the moon from the black background. Let's take a look. If I go back over to the internet, you'll see that I did a search for tree silhouette ping. A ping is a higher quality internet image. It's a little higher than a JPEG or a GIF. And if you don't know those terms, that's fine. You don't really need to know them that well. However, I will tell you right now that JPEGs are are for the internet, and they're more for colors that have like rainbows, like soft colors, like gradients of different colors. JPEGs are never transparent. GIFs can be transparent, and you can animate them. They can actually become looping animations. Well, pings now GIFs are usually going to be non-gradiated colors, like very hard colors, like where you have more stylized and not softer gradients like rainbows. You don't have you don't want to save a rainbow as a GIF. You'd want to save it as a JPEG for the most part. But GIFs tend to have very hard edges and less colors. Pings are sort of a combination between a JPEG and a GIF. Pings can have transparency. But they can't animate. So they're sort of like a hybrid between a GIF and a JPEG. So I did tree silhouette ping, and I found this transparent tree, and you'll see it's 2400 by 1700. It came in a little bit small. Let me just try something. Let me go to here, and I'm going to just see what happens if I copy this image. Go over here, Command V. Ah, there we go, and I get a bigger version of it. So I'm going to go ahead and use this bigger version. And one thing I can do before I delete the smaller version is just Command copy it, double click, Command paste. And now I'll throw out that smaller version, and I've got a bigger tree now to work with. And you see it's already coming in completely transparent. If I hit V on my keyboard, remember V takes us over to the move tool. Try to remember all these tools, okay? V is move, right here. Marquee is M, lasso is L, and it goes on from there. Crop is C. This one here, the quick selection tool, is W because the original tool was the magic wand. W for wand. Okay, so I have my tree in here, my tree silhouette, and I'm going to transform it, Command T, and I'm going to hold down Option and just make it bigger. And let's see, let's make it about this big, and I'm going to bring it up to about there. Okay, you're going to center it. Just kind of center it there. Hit return. Okay, so let's zoom in on it, Command plus, and see, it actually looks very nice. Now, you'll notice though that there may be some little bit of white around the edges, and I'm going to just click on the zoom tool to show you what I mean. Let's look. So see how there's a little bit of white around the edges of that? So I'm going to get rid of that white as best I can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and double click on the right side of the tree silhouette, and I'm going to add an inner glow. Okay, and here's what I'll do. Now I've taught you about the layer styles a little bit, and I've also taught you how you can handle certain things that will relate to this. So you're going to see right now how this is going to work. Inner glow, and I'm going to make it, blend modes. That's what I wanted to say. I've taught you about blend modes. So instead of having it be a white color, I'm going to make it black. So I'm just going to choose black as my color for that color. Okay, let me go in here, and I can just go 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay. Now, so black is the color, but it's in screen mode. So I'm going to change this to, you guessed it, multiply mode. And now that white is starting to go away. But I'm going to bring the opacity all the way up to 100. Okay? And as you can see, that those little areas that had a little white in them from maybe the original image that had some white in the background, all of that white is gone. So this is a nice trick. Don't forget this trick. I'm going to test you on all this stuff. So don't forget this trick to make any edges black, and you can see what it's doing. Okay, it's just adding some black there. I could also play around with the size. Maybe I don't need it to be that soft. Let's see, that's a little bit less, you know, it's a little smaller. Let's bring our choke up and just see if that does anything. Well, it makes it a little bit darker, which actually could be nice. Maybe bring it down to about 8. And I'll just go ahead and click on OK. And now you'll notice that this tree silhouette has an effect below it, which is an inner glow, which I actually made more of an inner multiply, right? And I'm going to just click and turn off the effects so you can see. There's the difference, okay? Now, if I feel like it's too mushy looking, I can always go in to my layer styles and fix it, okay? And change the inner glow, make it maybe smaller. But let's take a look. I'm going to zoom out and see what it looks like. Command minus. And it actually looks great. Okay, so we're good. Now, remember I taught you the liquify tool. So I'm going to use that tool again. What I might want to do is let's move that tree up a little bit because I feel like the tree is too, I'm using the V to move it. I feel like it's too low. So I'm going to make it have a longer trunk and I'm going to make its leaves stay inside the moon. Okay. So what I'll do, as you may recall, is go to the filter gallery. Just go to filter. Don't go to last filter or anything like that. Just go to liquify dot dot dot. And if you ever see liquify up here, don't go to it. Go to liquify dot 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 so you can get that dialog box. So now I have this. I'll use this forward warp tool and I'm going to drag that trunk all the way down to the grass. Okay, so that it's actually in there. I might even consider making it wider so I could just kind of go like this. I don't want to necessarily make it twist though. You could if you want to just play around with it, but like I can just grab the edges and try to pull them a little bit. I can make the tool smaller, as you know. Just make it smaller and then pull over to the right, maybe kind of mess with that a little bit, pull that out. Now remember, a lot of the Photoshop tricks I'm teaching you really take a lot more time than a short tutorial. So I'm not going to spend too much time doing things because I would bore you to tears. I'm going to go over here and use the forward warp tool to bring this out more towards the edge of the moon. And obviously if I were doing this on my own, I would spend a lot more time making it much nicer than I'm going to in this case. As you can see, it's starting to look a little bit weird. But you could do a really good job with this. So what we're doing is we're making this tree really fit nicely into the moon. And then I can go over here, push this piece into the moon. Anything that's sticking out can go into the moon. And I'm just going to push that back. And then this area, I'll just push this back. And obviously we're going to also be adding a title and we're going to add what's called a billing block, which I'll show you in a minute. I think I'm going to have to probably end this tutorial pretty soon just so that it's not too long and too big on the internet, and then I'll make another tutorial to show you the rest of what we're going to do. But let me just bring this out more. As you can see, I'm really trying to fit this tree nicely into the moon. Okay, so let's just say that's good enough. And I'm going to hit OK. And now you'll see that my tree really is fitting into that moon nicely. Obviously, I could do a better job. I'm going to go ahead and hit Command S to save. And let's call it a day for this tutorial. I'll show you the grass, the title, all kinds of other things in my next tutorial. Okay, so look forward to the next one, and I'm going to stop now.